You are listening to MINDSHOCK. This is your host, Pierce McGuire. This is November 2024. The end of November is World War III already upon us. Chua. Some people believe the ball got rolling on that one day in September. That's what many prophecies foretold. The one and only Albert Pike, one of the most infamous Freemasons in all of history, some believe instrumental in the founding of America. He had a very interesting quote, letters attributed to him. I'll read a quote here in a moment, but quite haunting predictions. That triggers a lot of goofs, a lot of coincidence theorist, authority worshipping cultists, bootlickers. They get really triggered. I mean, this kind of scientism fanaticism. These scientism fanatics, if you question any of the dogma of scientism, they just have absolute meltdowns. Very, very curious. Very, very curious indeed. If you want to help support the MINDSHOCK podcast, help logic and reason return to a world where it is quickly going extinct, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Make sure you're subscribed, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patreon is a good priority for case, topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind. Leave them in the comment section, or if you are with us live in the live chat, I will try to get to each and every comment. So, what are everybody's thoughts so far? Is everything about to hit the fan? Welcome, Les Xylophone, True Trollette, Sarah Catherine. What is the sentiment the world over? I think most people, actually, you know what? Let me double check the analytics. I think most people that listen to MINDSHOCK here are in the U.S., but let's get an exact stat on that. Most listeners are 35 to 44 years of age. Interesting. We have practically no listeners under 18, and the 18 to 24 bracket only 2.9%. Interesting, and only 7.2% of people over 65. Interesting. So 67.1% US, 6.3% UK, 4% Canada, 2.2% Australia, 0.7% from Germany, 0.6% New Zealand, 0.2% India. India represent. 0.1% Romania. Is that Andrew Tate? Does Andrew Tate listen to the MINDSHOCK podcast? 0.1% South Africa, 0.1% Sweden, Argentina, Finland, Greece, Ireland, Norway, 0% France and Italy, even though somehow there's views and watch time. It says 0.0. I guess it's 0.0 something, and it's not giving the other digits. So yes, the overwhelming majority in the U.S. of A. Seabass516. Seabass516. Are you named after the character in the perennial classic Dumb and Dumber? Does anyone else see them using aliens to try and distract people from the weather warfare they are using? But yeah, we gotta talk HARP. We gotta talk Operation Bluebeam. All part of the equation on the overlapping theories here. Les Xylophone says, seems like after my generation, they started brainwashing hardcore. You know what's kind of crazy, though? Les Xylophone, my friend. You know what's kind of crazy, though? I think they kind of have been brainwashing hardcore for a really long time. I mean, for 100 years at least, pretty hardcore. One of the best Mark Twain, so many good quotes. If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read the newspaper, you're misinformed. And the thing is, a lot of people were more trusting of statist governments decades past. I mean, I guess it's a little easier to be trusting when the economy and inflation isn't completely destroying your life. So I guess people would generally maybe were happier with their government. I don't know. Les Xylophone says they turned it up after Columbine. Okay, well, Columbine was definitely one of the turning points. It's not the only one, though. I mean, I would even argue Jonestown. Jonestown was one. I mean, Helter Skelter, Manson was another. And then I would even argue Waco and Ruby Ridge were factors. And then, of course, the Oklahoma City bombing. And then, yes, also Columbine and 9/11. I mean, there were just so many. Those were just such shady. Just really shady. I mean, everything was shady about all of them. And then after that, you have, of course. I mean, there was definitely acceleration 2012 and onward. There was some serious acceleration. Trying to find a graphic here. I mean, this is relevant as well here. This wasn't exactly the one I was looking for, but... So 1971 was an interesting year because that was right around the last time children out-earned their parents. And what's curious here is that productivity went up without compensation going up, starting in 1971. So that's pretty interesting. Les Xylophone says, I think when movies stop being original is a good marker of when things started to go to crap. You know what's kind of funny? People might dismiss that comment, but when you think about it, it is kind of true. I mean, movies went to complete trash, I don't know, 2011-ish, 2010, 2011. I mean, the decline was evident. I would say... I mean, it's so hard. We talked about this before in the 80s and 90s podcasts. probably around '08, it was a very, very visible slide. Like, I can't recall too many great movies made after '08. Somewhere around there. Les Xylophone says 80s special effects was peak. Yeah, it was a good combination of practical effects and computer effects. True Trollette says Satanic Panic. Yes, that is a factor. Welcome, Justin Johnson, in the house here. So there are quite a few factors. And I'm trying to find this one other graphic here. For whatever reason. Okay, I think I know what's going on here. Okay, here we go. So, there was also 2012's Obama's modernization of the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948, legalizing domestic propaganda, allowing the government to pass off staged drills as real in the mainstream media. Overnight mass shooting skyrocket. Okay, I mean, I'm sure it's all coincidental, though, right? I mean, it has to be. Because how could it not be coincidental? I mean, look at this. This has to be all coincidental. And also interesting, look at the drop after Virginia Tech. Isn't that interesting? And look at the drop after Columbine. That's curious. And then, of course, practically non-existent in previous decades before gun-free zones. So back when, there were rifle clubs and kids had shotguns and rifles in their trucks in school parking lots, that's when there weren't any mass shootings. That's when that didn't exist. And then with the rise of gun-free zones, so 1990 was the Gun-Free Zones Act. And again, a lot of these brain-dead anti-gun nuts, like, they just can't process the definition of a criminal. Someone who doesn't follow laws. So you could see just the skyrocket of shootings, not just at schools, but also never at private schools with armed security teams. Only at public schools with either some kind of single mall type security officer or no security at all. But never armed private security teams like at private schools. So for whatever reason, a lot of these brain dead goofs, they can't grasp the reason why none of these shootings are happening at private schools with armed security teams. Lord Zed, what are you referring to? Les Xylophone says, I think everything that was sensationalized the past 80 years has been a psyop. Well, why stop at 80? Like, what's going on with Tartaria, Mud Flood, all that stuff? I mean, I don't know. Ancient civilizations, I think, were sensationalized a bit, too. Seabass516 says, after the 80s seems to be when they started using CGI to trap people in the Matrix. A computer-generated dream world. That's literally people who believe their lies. I wonder if there is a correlation between the rise of video games, because it would be interesting. I gotta get that Polybius episode back up on arcade games, because there does seem to be a difference between playing arcade games for fun, like as a social experience at an arcade that also has like skee ball and all these other games for fun, including video arcade games. But those don't seem to have the same exact effect as video games people play in their mom's basement for countless hours. There seems to be a difference between the two. So let's get a little focused here on what exactly is going on. So let's go to Albert Pike next. But I think just in terms of despair and economy, it is kind of curious how in 1971, when people basically stopped being compensated relative to their productivity, that did seem to slowly be the beginning of the end, didn't it? Because it's kind of like a weird slide into communism instead of merit-based work. So let's go to Albert Pike. And the jury's kind of out on Albert Pike. Some people think he was the good guy. Some people think he was the bad guy. So this letter is on digitalheritage.arkansas.gov. So again, this isn't, literal photocopies of a letter from Albert Pike to Thomas Ashley. Material relating to the 1880 presidential race. Because a lot of goofs hallucinate that this is all made up nonsense, like a lot of these coincidence theories. But clearly it's presented as legitimate, whether it is or isn't. It's presented as legitimate by the government, the coincidence theorist bootlickers, the same government the bootlickers bootlick, while claiming this stuff is made up by conspiracy theorists, aka critical thinkers. Very, very curious, is it not? Now, apparently this URL is not working, so we gotta go to, it says it's online, but when I go there, it doesn't open. So, yeah, let me just go to the archive of it. Yeah, that's kind of weird that it actually was removed. Okay, so... Okay, there's a few different letters here. So this letter was on display in the British Museum Library until 1977. The British Library denied this. So this was a letter he wrote to Giuseppe Mazzini in 1871. You know what's weird though? Like a lot of these cases, I think I went over this in another podcast, possibly on World War III as well, where we actually traced some of this stuff. So let's see here. So, okay. Supposedly the letter was dated August 15th, 1871. So let's go over it here. So, okay. Pike's letter to Mazzini. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia, and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. So he's writing this in 1871. The divergences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. Interesting. Now, supposedly, just for all the history buffs and aficionados, Otto von Bismarck there was an alliance between England and their side and Germany and that side, and this was between 1871 1898 by Otto von Bismarck, who was a co-conspirator of Albert Pike. Now that's kind of curious, because if they were planning this several decades prior to the outbreak of World War I, was Albert Pike directly involved with instigating the First World War? In which case, is that how he had knowledge of that one? Now, what's interesting here that he goes on to say here, the Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage, he really likes the word foment, by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed, and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must be strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. That sounds ominous. Now, what's curious is that in 1945, the Potsdam Conference between Truman, Churchill, and Stalin, Russia somehow just got handed a large portion of Europe. So that's kind of curious. And then after the war with Japan, there was communism in China. So was this all coincidental, or was this kind of concerted effort like Albert Pike alleges? Now, here's another curiosity, because a lot of coincidence theorists, the Thorder-Wishman cultists, bootlickers, they say that the words Nazism and Zionism did not exist in 1871. And, of course, coincidence theorists... So if those words were coined by these, the Freemasons, Illuminati, whoever, they would have had plans to coin those words prior, would they not? So just something the coincidence theorists never consider. Communism, the communist ideology actually originates in France during the Revolution. So that would have been 1785. And what's kind of curious is that, just a brief history lesson here for the coincidence theorist gives, communism was coined by Restif, the He was actually quite famous, Restif and Baboof. And they were students of Rousseau. And Rousseau by Adam Weishaupt himself, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati. So the terminology, just the etymology of the terminology, and connecting Albert Pike himself through several degrees of separation to Adam Weishaupt himself, who even George Washington exchanged letters in, and these letters are in the Library of Congress to be easily verified by anyone, talking about the Illuminati. And there is, of course, even a conspiracy theory that Weishaupt himself stole George Washington's identity, and the man on the dollar bill is not George Washington but Adam Weishaupt. And I'll be doing an episode on that because there's actually a lot of footnotes and wrinkles in that theory that on the surface, like a lot of coincidence theorists, they just appeal to incredulity. But when you start actually looking into what is known about that, I mean, it looks like there's something there to that one. Rodney Thomas in the chat says, author Emmanuel Todd states that the first experiments in communism started in ancient China and India. Yeah. So when you say ancient, you're talking thousands, allegedly. But yeah, I mean, this is just modern times, so what they supposedly have written records of going to the 1700s. Justin Johnson says, I don't believe any history and or wars are organic. All the wars are banker wars with alternative motives opposing what we are told. Yeah, but it's curious to actually trace the personalities involved here, including Albert Pike. Because, I mean, this is quite the coincidence stack. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Oh, people in the chat talking about the Mike Tyson fight being fixed. So, are you referring to supposedly there was a contract clause that Tyson was not allowed to throw uppercuts? That was messed up. I don't know who said that, but that is what was being discussed. Seabass says, let's not forget about reptilians. What if the eyes only change on the screen, and without a hallucination, you won't see it in real life? People who see it could be getting gangsta. Okay, let's put that aside for a moment, because if you've checked out the reptilian conspiracy series here on MindShock, 2 episodes thus far, I have a third one coming, but David Icke was collecting accounts of this going back decades and decades and decades, so we're not even talking about screens here. We're talking about in-person witnesses. We're talking about accounts from Native Americans. They literally drew them on cave walls. Now, obviously, we don't know the dates of any of that. But, yeah. And for those that are saying that there's no connection between Tyson reptilians and the Illuminati, did you forget what kind of podcast you were listening to? Did you forget? Maybe it's time for a reminder.
I got rid. And then I got caught up with this other piece of shit, Don King, who's just a wretched, slimy reptilian motherfucker. wretched, slimy reptile. Just a wretched, slimy reptilian motherfucker, right? This is supposed to be my brother, my black brother, right? He's just a bad man. He's a real bad man. He abused you, and he would throw you. He would kill his mother for $1. He's ruthless. He's deplorable. He doesn't know how to love anybody. That's just the way. And then I got caught up with this other piece of shit, Don King, who's just a wretched, slimy reptile. Just a wretched, slimy reptilian motherfucker.
So yeah, Mike Tyson's been on to the reptilians for a while, but anyway, let's continue. Tweak in the chat says, would pay to watch world leader roller jam. The fall enslaves us all, said Steven Seagal will slap the face off the $1 bill. Well, we got to talk about Seagal's role in World War III here, because this is kind of, I mean, it's all kind of crazy. But let's finish Albert Pike here. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. I mean, is that kind of curious, him writing about this in 1871? 1871? The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the State of Israel, the State of Israel, in 1871, it was not, well, it wasn't an officially recognized country. That's, I don't know, mutually destroy each other. The State of Israel, unless he's talking about, unless he's mentioning the plans, the unveiling before the fact, but on what's planned, so he knew that it would become an official state or whatever, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all of its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. I mean, this is really dark stuff here. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. So what does everybody make of Albert Pike here in these predictions? If this is legitimate, again, this is MINDSHOCK. I do not claim anything is true or untrue, because obviously the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. Seabass says, Pelosi also called herself a reptilian, and Buckingham Palace literally made an announcement about Elizabeth shifting in front of the public, then deleted the article they posted. Justin Johnson says all scripted. Are you talking about the reptilian stuff all scripted, or Albert Pike's letters were scripted? Seabass says, which is why I ask, are they trying to freak out people they have programmed and make them hallucinate, or normalizing it and trying to get laws put in place to protect them, or am I still missing something? You're gonna have to expand on that further. What are you talking about, reptilians? Tweak says it just took them longer to do it than initially anticipated. And the other thing is, are all of these things related? The world wars, reptilians, all the propaganda, one world government, Project Bluebeam. For those that don't know, of course, the one and only Serge Monost. I'll have that episode back up. I'll have that episode back up shortly. But he unveiled Operation Bluebeam back in the 80s. Back in the 80s. And he also predicted the whole trans agenda thing. I mean, Monost was a revolutionary. Monost and Bill Cooper, they're no longer alive, but the likes of Alex Jones are. Now, I'm not saying that means anything specific, just something to think about. And this is Serge Monost, for people who don't know. The one and only Serge Monost. Rodney Thomas in the chat saying, did you ever watch the closing ceremony for the 84 Summer Olympics? I don't know. Let's see. It's 2 hours and 46 minutes. Oh wow, this is creepy stuff. Alright, so here's Bill Cooper's take on it. So let's watch Bill Cooper's take on the closing ceremony. So we'll see what the legendary OG conspiracy theorist Bill Cooper says about it. And why? I mean, again, are they using these ceremonies because these are some of the most watched events? So some kind of mass hypnosis, brainwashing, predictive programming, MK Ultra that takes place during these opening and closing ceremonies. Give me a second, I'll put it on the screen.
That. Did you see the ending of the Olympic Games in 1984?
Yes.
You should get a tape of the closing ceremony. It was occurred at night in the UFO.
A spacecraft held by a helicopter.
Well, it wasn't held by a helicopter. There was no helicopter up there holding this thing. They'll tell you that, but it's not true. Can you imagine the liability that they would have if they were carrying this thing suspended on a cable underneath a helicopter over the heads of hundreds of thousands of people? They wouldn't do
You're
it.
meaning to say that that thing used in the 1984 Olympics, the closing ceremony,
Was under its own power.
was under its own power?
Yes,
That's fascinating, with these laser lights dancing out of it?
that's right. There was no helicopter. Carrying this thing suspended on a cable underneath a helicopter over the heads of hundreds of thousands of people. They wouldn't do
You're
it.
meaning to say that that thing used in the 1984 Olympics, the closing ceremony,
Was under its own power.
was under its own power?
Yes,
That's fascinating, with these laser lights dancing out of it?
that's right. There was no helicopter. There was no cable.
Whoa, that is heavy news.
Daar komt een ruimtevaartuig aan, een soort vliegende schotel, ontworpen door Bob Gurr. Werkzaam bij Walt Disney. Met zijn schijnwerpers het publiek in het Colosseum verlicht. Titta här.
Där uppe på podiet står liksom en varelse från en främmande planet. Vi har kommit en lång väg. Därför jag tyckte om det jag har sett.
For almost 100 years you have celebrated the best that humanity has to offer.
I have no idea how I have never seen this before. Is this a Mandela effect? I mean, why hasn't this been brought up? I mean, I've watched such a large amount of Bill Cooper, Alex Jones, etc. I don't remember anybody talking about this. So, big shout out to Rodney Thomas in the chat here for bringing this up. I mean, this is crazy. And some of that UFO footage flying over the crowds, that doesn't look like a hologram. I mean, that kind of looks like, it looks like it's a solid object there. Now, I have no idea how they propagated it, but that does not look like a hologram. Also, this is 1984, not that they couldn't have the holograms, but that looks like a physical object. And this is really creepy. I mean, why would they do this at the Olympics? I mean, this is more like, I mean, yeah, maybe like at Universal Studios or some kind of theme park, but the Olympic Games? It's almost like that whole hospital bed thing. That was super weird. But let's continue here.
I have come a long way.
Vi har kommit en lång väg.
What I have seen.
Därför jag tyckte om det jag har sett.
By a belief in the limitless possibilities of human achievement. For almost 100 years, you have celebrated the best that humanity has to offer. You call it the Olympic Games. And for that, and for the cities which have kept the Olympic ideal alive, I salute you!
Och nu dånar det. Nu dånar det loss. Det är fyrverkeri man har talat om. Enorma palmer reser de sig upp här. Fyrverkerierna.
I will soothe your pain of your stolen power.
Yeah, I mean, I almost don't know what to say here. This is really impressive stuff. That just looks like a rendering stuck in there that wasn't part of the show, but just random graphics. But this kind of, I mean, this is kind of impressive for 1984. I mean, this looks better than any of the UFO videos. I mean, that looks like a legitimate solid object there. Like an actual object. Not a hologram. And it's not, and this was filmed with high quality television cameras. I mean, imagine what some of those UFOs filmed with like backyard camcorders in the 80s, because they're all grainy and horrible. Imagine if they had TV cameras like this, like broadcast cameras. Like, look at the quality here. This is 1984. And the resolution here is quite good. And this is over a live crowd at the closing ceremony of the Olympics. I mean, everything's creepy about it. I mean, look how creepy everything about this is. And also, like, the crowd cheers this alien on. Like some kind of louche, or the demons want their energy, they want their worship. I mean, look at how the arms are brought up, like as if to say, worship me. I mean, this is, I mean, wow. Man, this is creepy, creepy stuff. I don't know why this hasn't been talked about more within the Operation Bluebeam sphere. I mean, this is textbook. Looks like they did a test run on. I mean, look how convincing this looks. I mean, nobody's gonna think that this type of UFO is fake in 1984. I mean, the lights. I mean, just everything they were doing. How did they do this? So that's a question. Were there cables involved? If not, was this like the Die Glock German technology, or was it other U.S. developed some kind of advanced technology to just levitate these objects? Or was it a hologram? I mean, it really doesn't look like a hologram. It looks like that is a solid object. It looks like it's actually there. I mean, it looks like it's there. And just the lights and everything. And look at the rotating lights too. This looks exactly like a lot of these VHS claimed UFO videos. I mean, it's almost like either they copied them or are they using actual real UFOs? Justin Johnson says, I believe the globalists have hidden the true nature of our electromagnetic realm and the ability to quantum lock using electrostatics. Yeah. Truth Trollette says, too bad we can't find and ask people that were there and ask if they remember this happening to see if it's Mandela or not. I mean, this is the internet, so I'm sure we should be able to, sooner or later, we're going to be running into people who either were there or knew people who went to that. Because by a few degrees of separation, I mean, we could all get people that went to the last few Olympics, so, yeah. Justin Johnson says, the future is the past. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm kind of blown away by this. I think I just got my mind shocked. I mean, shout out to Rodney Thomas in the chat there. I mean, this truly shocked me. 1984. See, if this was, late 90s, not really. 1984? So how long have they been able to do this? This is 1984. I mean, I don't see any cables. It's not like the moon landing footage where you can clearly see the wires. I mean, how did they levitate and fly these objects over the entire... This is over the crowd. It's not like... I mean, this is crazy. I mean, let me get a number here on how many people attended. So the attendance was 5.79 million across opening and closing. So I don't know what percentage was... So it's estimated people attended... Okay, so more than 80,000 filled the Coliseum. So there was at least 80,000 people watching these UFOs fly over them. 80,000 witnesses. Not that anybody claimed it didn't have, and these are high quality television broadcast cameras filming. I mean, this is really incredible. I mean, I don't know what to say here. 1984? I mean, this does not look like 1984. I mean, in movies and stuff, they use all these special effects. This is live. in front of an audience. I mean, this is really incredible. And the UFOs, it looks like they're moving back and forth, too. Like, left to right, right to left. I mean, performing these maneuvers. I mean, this is crazy. This is really crazy. I mean, imagine what it was like if you were in the crowd there. I mean, just think about it. You're seeing, like, legit UFOs above you. Tim T81 says, I was an 80s kid. I have never seen this anywhere. Did you watch the closing ceremony? Is this a mandala? Did you watch the closing ceremony? Because if you did watch it and this wasn't in it, but if you never watched the closing ceremony, then I guess you wouldn't have seen it. I mean, I'm not sure I've seen any closing ceremony of any Olympics. I mean, I've seen opening ceremonies, but I don't think I've actually seen a closing one ever. So, I mean, I don't know. Because, I mean, people watch opening ceremonies. I didn't think closing was that big of a deal, but apparently it was roughly the same crowd. It's almost a capacity crowd here, over 80,000 both for the opening and over 80,000 for the closing ceremony here. But just that they would even think to do this, and keep in mind, Hollywood went crazy with all the alien movies and all that stuff, too. Truth Trollette says, my parents watched the Olympics, but never the opening or closing ceremonies. I mean, this is some of the most amazing UFO footage I've ever seen. How crazy would it be if these were actual extraterrestrial interdimensional entities and they just put on this show as if it was, you know, a fake human thing and it was actually real? Would you put it past them? Would you put it past the Illuminati to do that? I mean, this is just truly remarkable. I mean, I have no idea how they would have done this. Because, I mean, how would they have suspended it with even... How would they even get cables that high? Alright, let's look at one more detail here on this alien. This alien has 6 fingers, which is the biblical account of Nephilim. They have 6 fingers, and coincidentally, they designed this alien to have 6 fingers, just like the Nephilim described in the Bible. Yeah, look at that. So, they have the thumb. You'll get a better angle here in a second. There's the thumb, and also 5 other fingers other than the thumb. So, exactly like the Nephilim account in the Bible. Now, what's curious is that giants are also depicted with 6 fingers a lot of the time. Here's an image here from Pike. So giants and Nephilim in the Bible have 6 fingers. And also, this is depicted all over the ancient world of beings that have 6 fingers. What does everybody think about this? Is this mind-shocking? Some people believe Nephilim were demons or giants or some kind of crossbred hybrids of some kind. You know what's really crazy? I mean, we're getting really into MindShock territory here. Let's go all the way back. I mean, this is pretty crazy. So supposedly they have 6 fingers and 6 toes. So both on their hands and feet, 6 fingers. So this is 2 Samuel 21:20. 6 fingers, 6 toes. Alright, now look at this. Supposedly this is an actual footprint in Utah. A 6-toed footprint in Utah. This is... what is this? I mean, this gets pretty crazy. There's also various creatures depicted with 6 fingers all over the ancient world. This is also in Utah. I don't know if these have been dated, but they look pretty old. Six fingers, these creatures. I mean, this is New Mexico here. 3 Rivers, New Mexico. This supposedly ancient rock art. And in this Olympic ceremony, they chose to have this alien have 6 fingers. Kinda curious, is it not? Kinda curious. Curious indeed. And I know we're talking about World War III, but I think this might all be related. Might all be related. Christopher Allen says, I'm reading an article about this show. It tells you everything about the show. Yeah, why don't you drop the link? Where's the link? I mean, this is just really crazy. I mean, this was truly a mind shock here. This is truly a mind shock. I mean, nobody really, I mean, I don't know anybody who watches closing ceremonies, so... Okay, I have a copy here of the full ceremony, full closing ceremony. It's 2 hours long. So, yeah, there's nowhere to hang anything from. Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the screen in a second. There's nowhere to, I don't know, they wouldn't be able to wire these up and fly them around. And that literally was the very end of the ceremony. So, hold on a second, I'll put up the whole thing. Man, look at the rabbit hole that was open tonight. Wow. Absolute rabbit hole. Wow, it's gonna get really crazy. Okay, so apparently Lionel Richie performed at the closing ceremony as well. And I'm looking through comments here. A lot of people were saying they did watch it on TV. It would be interesting. Okay, here's a comment. This was more awesome than people know. I was at the Olympic Village watching this on the big screen. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, so some people were actually there, and a lot of people seem to have watched this. Also, what's curious is that it's back, the Olympics are back, so this was Los Angeles, 84. The Olympics are back in Los Angeles in 2028. So the next Olympics will be in LA again, and this last time is when they were doing this. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. I'm gonna put up a video of the entire thing so you can get an idea of the layout of the stadium and how they could have done this. I wonder what Lionel Richie knows. Plenty of conspiracies about Lionel Richie as well. Alright, 1 second, I'll put it on the screen. So, this is the whole thing, but look at that. So, it's an open-air stadium. Where would they be lowering? So, when the UFO is flying all over this 80,000 crowd, How would they be doing that? I mean, like, look at the layout of this place. Like, by what mechanism? Now, I mean, look at that. There's no way there was any cable suspensions. How did they do this? I mean, this... I am perplexed here. How did they fly these UFOs? Dustin Hoffman in attendance. I mean, this really is crazy. I mean, that's not a helicopter. I mean, I played it with the sound before. There's no helicopter sound. I mean, look at that. That's a UFO flying over a stadium of 80,000 people. I mean, this is crazy. How did they do that? Does everybody see that? I didn't catch this angle from before. Joanne says man-made tech. Maybe. But this is 84. I mean, there it is. You could see it hovering over a crowd of 80,000 people. And then they're launching fireworks at the end. And that's all, folks. Yeah, I mean, this is just so impressive, though. I mean, this truly is impressive. And of course, just the reason why they even did it. Some kind of Operation Bluebeam predictive programming or something. So what does everybody think about Albert Pike? What does everybody think about the situation? Ukraine, Russia, are nuclear weapons real? We should be discussing that as well. Like, a lot of people get triggered, but all of the test footage looks pretty fake. So, I don't know. Joanne says, in my opinion, Black Ops tech has been in sci-fi territory for a long time, but public is 100 years behind. Yeah, I mean, in most of the documentaries I saw and the so-called insiders, it's kind of long been said that military tech is about 50 years ahead of civilian, but who knows what the real number is. Seabass, haven't heard that before. Did they kill Lincoln to release Pike from prison after the Civil War? So, Albert Pike... I think Pike also mentioned Flat Earth in Morals and Dogma, right? I mean, I did a Albert Pike podcast in the early days of MindShock. In 1859, he received an honorary Master of Arts degree from Harvard. Interesting. That's pretty interesting. And obviously Harvard is intertwined in the establishment. Freemasonry and otherwise. So yeah, he was in the Mexican-American War and the American Civil War. So he was appointed to as a Confederate envoy to Native American nations. And he negotiated several treaties. Also, I wonder, in all of his contact with the Native Americans, like, how much knowledge did he have about their prophecies and shaman knowledge and all of that? That'd be curious to know as well. If anybody that has read the works of Carlos Castaneda, you know, a lot of similar ideas of archons, interdimensional mind parasites, etc. Yeah, I mean, just a lot of bizarre stuff there, a lot of coincidences from all of these ancient civilizations. Yes, Justin Johnson, he was a 33-degree Mason. Joanne says, didn't he just help formulate the plan with his sick buddies? Apparently, I mean, his associates were involved with World War I, yes, but, supposedly, some of the conspirators, yeah. Rodney asks, did Pike know about the 7 Fires prophecy of the Native Americans? Well, apparently he was negotiating treaties, so he did have contact with a lot of them. The 7 Fires prophecy, straight from the wiki here, is an Anishinaabe prophecy that marks phases or epochs in the life of the people on Turtle Island, the original name given by the indigenous peoples of the now North American continent. The 7 Fires of the prophecy represent key spiritual teachings for North America and suggest that the different colors and traditions of the human beings, Hue-man, H-U-E, can come together on a basis of respect. It contains information for the future lives of the Anishinaabe, which are still in the process of being fulfilled. Originally, the prophecies were given by the 8 prophets in 7 different time periods. According to oral tradition, the Micmac nation heard the first prophet. The remaining 7 prophets appeared before and were recorded by the Anishinaabe A prophecy of each of these 7 periods was then called a fire. And again, if you haven't checked out that episode where we were talking about fair, fire, fine, I mean, all of these things are just, it's like fair is such a, pay the fare, go to the fair. Is life fair? The fair is just a very interesting word. The teachings of the 7 fires prophecy also state that when the world has been befouled and the waters turn bitter by disrespect, human beings will have 2 options to choose from: materialism or spirituality. If they choose spirituality, they will survive. If they choose materialism, it will be the end of it. Yeah, that's definitely ominous. And if history repeats, I mean, again, is that what happened with Atlantis, with Lemuria, with Tartaria? Obviously, we don't know. And a lot of triggered coincidence theorists are too terrified to even ask these questions. Rodney Thomas says the 7th prophecy is the most interesting. Alright, let me go over that one. The 7th prophet that came to the people long ago was said to be different from the other prophets. This prophet was described as young and had a strange light in his eyes. He said, in the time of the 7th fire, new people will emerge. They will retrace their steps to find what was left by the trail. Their steps will take them to the elders, who they will ask to guide them on their journey, but many of the elders will have fallen asleep. They will awaken to this new time with nothing to offer. Some of the elders will be silent because no one will ask anything of them. The new people will have to be careful in how they approach the elders. The task of the new people will not be easy. If the new people will remain strong in their quest, the water drum of the Midwewin Lodge will again sound its voice. There will be a rebirth of the Anishinaabe nation and a rekindling of old flames. The sacred fire will again be lit. It is this time that the light-skinned race will be given a choice between 2 roads. One road will be green and lush and very inviting. The other road will be black and charred, and walking it will cut their feet. In the prophecy, the people decide to take neither road, but instead to turn back, to remember and reclaim the wisdom of those who came before them. If they choose the right road, then the 7th fire will light the 8th and final fire, an eternal fire of peace, love, brotherhood, and sisterhood. If the light-skinned race makes the wrong choice of the roads, then the destruction which they brought with them in coming to this country will come back at them and cause much suffering and death to all the Earth's people. Well, that sounds like a potential WW3 situation. Okay, so hold on a second. Let's dissect this. So in the prophecy, the people take neither road? So they turn back and reclaim of the wisdom. However, if they choose the right road, then the 7th fire will light the 8th and final fire. So the prophecy is that neither will be taken. But if the correct one is taken, it will end. This is crazy. Most of the other prophecies are quite interesting as well. I probably should do a dedicated podcast on all of this and also compare to other Native American. There's quite a lot of different Native American prophecies. All of them are quite interesting. Jones says, not to change the subject, but remember Werner von Braun told his assistant the final card played would be the alien deception. A lot of full disclosure crap flying around these days. Yeah, that is on subject. So we got, obviously we got Serge Monast here, supposedly the originator of the Project Bluebeam theory going public, but yes, that was the story from von Braun, and not just him. So the great deception in the Bible, some believe that is describing Bluebeam as well. Seabass says, relating to the prophecies, that sounds like a choice between being a savage in Brave New World, in a world of war, or in some new world order of complete collectivism. The post I have about the so-called genius in the CIA has interesting things to say about a one-world collective mindset. Yeah, so the theory that if nukes aren't really real, because nukes are kind of like a scientism theory, because, what evidence has been produced other than, massive bombs? That doesn't mean an atom was split. There's been massive bombs for a long time. Also, a lot of the images in the aftermath are very similar to napalm in Vietnamese bombings as well, so... Yeah, it's really tough, and supposedly there was plenty of activity in Hiroshima and Nagasaki even the day after, and people continued to live there, supposedly. But yeah, it's pretty tough to dissect all of this, but keeping people in fear, trauma-based mind control, keeping people in fear, keeping that loosh going, it seems like just the existence of nukes would accomplish that goal. Now, again, let's not fall for false dichotomies. That doesn't mean it couldn't theoretically be real, but there's so many problems, and the scientism fanatics, they just can't handle any kind of logical, objective conversation about any of this type of stuff. Now, what else is kind of curious? So, supposedly Einstein influenced the beginning of the Manhattan Project. Now, Einstein obviously a complete fraud, and relatively completely bunk. So if he's a complete fraud, and how involved was he? Because if he's a total fraud, what does that mean? Like, what would he know about alleged nuclear fission? It's kind of weird, right? Like, once you start actually breaking down all of the variables, do they add up? Jones says WBAN is real, though, and they could do a lot of damage with DEWs. Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, there's definitely... Yeah, they definitely have a lot of advanced weapons, no question. But it's just weird how goofs get triggered about nukes not being real. It's just that they're so triggered that something is not as reported on the idiot box. So... let's do a final poll here. Let's see where everybody's at. Justin Johnson says splitting an atom is preposterous. It is. That's a bold claim, is it not? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Having some fraud work on the Manhattan Project is not... that doesn't scream legitimate, does it? Wow, so far 100% of the listeners believe WW3 is already upon us. I mean, let's take a look at the test footage here. I don't know if we actually went over the footage. I mean, it just looks very unnatural. I mean, this is upscaled to high def, so let's see. Let's see what's going on here. I mean, I don't know, some people are saying this is all some kind of set. So what I kind of want to know is, how was the camera not destroyed here? I mean, that's kind of weird. Like, how did they recover the footage here? Were they streaming it live on YouTube? I mean, none of this really makes any sense. I mean, were they kind of claiming that it wasn't real? So, because is the claim that none of this was real? But, I mean, what was it? It's not computer generated, so... Was this claimed to be real? So... Basically, so these clips are from Teapot Apple II, and Operation Q took place May 5th, 1955. That's curious. Took place 5/5/55. Okay, I'm sure that's not a coincidence. So it was remotely operated photographic coverage of the blast and thermal damage to physical structures. Apple II was a 29 kiloton nuclear test. A total of 48 cameras were operated at distances from ground zero from 2,750 feet to 10,500 feet. These particular clips were photographed both inside and outside of the house. Yeah, but how did... But how did they transfer that? So, I mean, were they streaming the footage? Like, what's the claim of how it was recovered? A comment on the YouTube video here is, what I take away from this video is that if we made our houses as strong as we made those cameras, insurance companies would die out. Oh, man. Yeah, a lot of people are actually asking how the cameras weren't instantly destroyed. So, I mean, apparently the claim is here that these are real physical structures. So then how did they get the footage? I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, like, especially from inside the house. So this is, supposedly this is a real blast. Like, how did they recover? Were they live streaming? Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know what to do with this footage. So, wow, I think... Is this the first poll in MINDSHOCK history where it's 100%? 100% of listeners say that World War III is already upon us. I mean, did they make those cameras out of the passport paper that was found, the unscathed passports found? on 9/11. Did they make the cameras out of that type, out of passport paper? Seabass516 says, Fallout, they need their goobs to volunteer to be evacuated for the fake nukes. Same with aliens. Those who volunteer, I don't even want to think about what their fate will be. And is that where where that old saying comes, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see? Half of what you see, so you can't even trust your own lying eyes. So that's interesting. Seabass also says, well, Mars, interesting when you compare it to South Park and their prediction that Elon will take all those who have given up on humanity and the world, those people who are attracted to leaving the planet. Huh, that's interesting. Will they be all wiped out? Dark theories here on WW3 and its aftermath. But the listeners have spoken. 100% are claiming that we are in the midst of it. What it all will mean, how it will all end up. I mean, another curiosity, and I'll round this out, is the powers that be, the banker wars. Actually, let's round this out with this quote from the incredible Smedley Butler. War is a racket. And so this was done. So he was the most decorated Marine in history. And he blew the whistle on all this way back when. War's Racket is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to be to the majority of people. Only a small inside group knows what it is really about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the very many. Out of war, a few people make huge fortunes. So this is Major General Smedley D. Butler, 1935. The most decorated Marine, or at least he was at that time. And he blew the whistle on all this. So is the powers that be, if we're talking Tartaria mudflood resets, is it in the best interest of the powers that be to make sure that the strongest of the population are constantly being wiped out, so then the weakest are left, and they can't fight back effectively? So that's something to think about. Hope everybody enjoyed another episode of the MINDSHOCK podcast. If you want to help support the podcast, help logic and reason return to a world where it is quickly going extinct, you could donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description, or you can become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.